this just to prove it. There we go. And I will try my very best to look at the chat every now and again. Very welcome, Wakas. Okay, brilliant. So we're on shared screen. You should be able to see. Now, what was really interesting last week was that we had such a great conversation on negotiation. I hadn't realized what a hot topic this was, that they actually decided sort of most of the way through that we'll finish out negotiation to the extent you can ever finish with negotiation. And I'll break it up and we'll do closing this week, and hence the title of this one, 50 Shades of Closing, because as anyone will tell you, there's no just one close. There's a whole shade of different things that go on when we actually go to close deals. Okay, brilliant. So in a nutshell, in the chat box, which is much from my memory more than anything, if you do just a bit of a favor and just put in whereabouts you're located just now. Are you in the UK or outside the UK? I noticed we'll have we've got a number of callers in. And what's your profession just now? Do you have sales in your job title? Do you do lots of other things? Sales is just one of them. That'd be really interesting to know. How comfortable are you with closing sales? Because if I'm honest, I still have to consciously get myself over a hurdle sometimes, depending on who I'm with. And I've been doing this 34 years. So, so 1 is not very confident at all. 10, well, maybe we should swap seats, but we'll be interested to see where that goes. But I'd be really interested to see kind of what comes out a little bit. So, Philip near Marston, fantastic. Internal sales, brilliant. Okay, that's how I started out, Philip, by the way, in telesales, which I think is a recognised sort of Wen Hao Chua, Sunny Singapore, fantastic. Andrew, North Yorkshire, God's own, fantastic. Okay, Singapore, I stayed there many times, so we are a fantastic place to be. So in a nutshell, this is about you and the subject rather than about me, but in a nutshell, 1st of August, which I think is next week sometime, will be my 34th anniversary in sales. So not a clue. Okay, yeah, Natalia, I think you're being modest there. 34 years next, I think it's Monday. I've worked for a number of really big companies and a whole host of smaller companies you won't have heard of, but including Hewlett Packard, BT, all sorts of people, some global brands, not so much. And I've worked on deals from high volume, low cost, such as broadband at $45 a month, right up to great big outsourcing deals at over $1 billion. And I can tell you that the principles of selling are pretty similar, no matter what you're selling and how much you're selling it for. Some are a little more complicated. Sometimes you've got to know, more than 2 people in the account, but generally the principles are pretty similar. If anyone vehemently disagrees with that, and I'm always up for a debate, but so kind of let me know. Don't be shy. That's my message. So I've already done that. And I'm a sales trainer and sales coach now. Have been so for about 4 years or so. Okay, brilliant. Now, last week we were talking about negotiation, and I talked about being in the pound seat or the dollar seat or whatever seat is the denomination of currency where you are, and how to get yourself in the pound seat. We talked about you've got to have the preferred value proposition. That may sound obvious, but I don't think it is obvious, so I'm just going to state it outright for the record. You need to know everything about the client's needs, and I am talking about, shall we say, more complex sales. Sometimes a sale is dead simple, going into a coffee shop. I'll use that example. That's a pretty simple sell, pretty straightforward, uncomplex. Welcome to those of you who just joined the call. So you need to know everything about the client's needs. Your self-confidence is a huge, your personal self-esteem is quite deep, quite philosophical. I'm not going to go into detail, but the principle is still true. It has an amazing impact on how how well you can negotiate, how you feel about closing. There's lots of psychology involved in this, which I don't propose to go into on this particular call. And of course, for more complex deals, especially, you need to have the support of the right people in the deal. We talked about people that can say yes, but sometimes they're not nearly as powerful as people that can say no and bring it all to a shuddering halt. So we talked about that. And remember, we talked about BPR and MAR. Best possible result. We'd love to come out of this deal. Minimum acceptable result. We absolutely, this is the bare minimum of what we need. Really important that the whole team are aligned on that, or if it's just you, that you know what those what I call the ceiling and what the floor is. Okay, right. So personal experience, lessons learned, and I will get on to closing in just a second. Again, I've just talked about confidence and self-esteem. Excuse me. My challenge to you is try saying no. Try saying no to someone in a professional, polite way and all those things, but try saying no. It is incredibly empowering to take back control, if you like to use that phrase, a little bit hackneyed right now, but take back control, try say no, assert yourself in the deal. Really, really important. Okay, right. So here we are. This is the best practice sales process. We've got a value proposition, etc., going down. We negotiated last week. We are going to close this week. And then next week, we're going to talk about maximizing yield, and I'll put some other stuff after that. So every Tuesday, 1:15 p.m. I'd love to see you on the call. If you have teammates that you think might benefit, invite them along as well. Get them to connect with me, and I'll send the invite as we go out there. Okay, brilliant. So my definition of closing the sale is really, it's a really big subject. Obviously, it's the moment at which your client agrees to buy. Now, here's the key. Are they taking the product out of your hand, which I think is the most powerful kind of selling, or are you shoving it down their throat, which is a very 1980s tactic? And those of you that have seen The Wolf of Wall Street will know, well, actually, you know, that's should be stuck in the 80s. Unfortunately, there are one or two firms around that still practice those kind of sales tactics. I don't. I prefer, you know, people that actually want to buy from me, and I create willing buyers in the process, and I want to show you how to do the same for your business as well, whether you are a salesperson, whether you're the business owner, or whether you are supporting salespeople. Okay, right. So the assumption is you've already agreed the major terms: pricing, spec, delivery, timescales, etc. So my question to you is, just think about this. If you want to come off of this, I don't go for numbers on these calls. I go for engagement. So if you want to come off of mute, feel free to do so. If you prefer just to put your answer in the chat, that's fine too. I'll come back to. Great, welcome, Andrew. How do you know? I'm really interested to know the answers. How do you know when your client wants to buy? What are the signals that you're looking for? Now, I will tell you what I'm looking for in a bit, but if you want to jump in right now, is it body language? Are they a set of words that you're looking to hear? I don't know. Andrew, you got any thoughts on that?
I do, yeah, and I think it's a combination of all of it. Nowadays, with everything being online, it's a bit trickier. I always prefer to close face to face, as in, you know, I know that I'm going to that meeting, coming out with an order. So yeah, I would say it's a bit of everything really. The language that they're using in terms of it's going to be positive. They're talking about problems that they know that you can fix. They're talking about how your product is going to be able to fix those problems. It's all of that really, and then obviously the body language that goes with it.
Fantastic. So a combination, so it could be one of or a combination of those signs that we're kind of looking for, and you're touching on body language as well, I think there, Andrew, in terms of positive affirmation, if you like. Okay, yeah, that's great feedback, thank you. So it could be if we're selling gym memberships or something like that, it could be very simple. To use the old FedEx term, press hard, fifth copy is yours. And the very fact that they're taking the pen out of your hand, that's a signal of intent. They're going to sign on the dotted line, etc. Can we shake hands on that? That is a very sort of westernized culture, which before the pandemic, it was probably 99% people were going to shake hands on a deal. Of course, you wouldn't ever incur any costs until you signed a contract, because we don't live in that sort of gentleman's or gentle person's kind of world anymore. We do everything as though we're going to court. I think that's good practice, but we could shake hands on that metaphorically. Now, post-pandemic, are you comfortable shaking hands? And that's really interesting as well. Personally, if the other person doesn't put their hand out, shaking hands, I put my hand on my heart, and that's my gesture, if you like. That's what I've and I found that works quite well, particularly if it's if you're working with a member of the opposite sex. Sometimes you just don't want that. Anyway, we're going down that hole. Anyway, you don't necessarily want that, and they don't shake hands. It's not automatic to everyone to shake hands, so I generally use that. All right, brilliant. So and then or it could be there's no shake of hands. It's like you agree to move into a contracting process by engaging lawyers, and then the which is fine on many things, but you need to make sure you've got the bare bones of your deal negotiated, all the major components, because otherwise, and forgive me, I can't actually see if there's any lawyers on the line. Otherwise, they'll get stuck at definitions on clause 1, and you'll be in for a really big bill, and you won't get any progress very good. So you need to agree those concepts in advance. Anyway, okay, right. So, or as has happened with me in investment banking, you go through a tender process, you'll just get a call from the bank, let's say, and say, congratulations, you've won the deal. That's happened on many occasions. Anyway, we won't go down that, but that's a sign that you've won. That may seem like an obvious question, but it's not always obvious what people are thinking or what they're doing. So you have to look for these signs, as Andrew just said. Okay, brilliant. Now, I believe this, and I'm sure lots of other clever people have said something similar to this, but I believe that closing a sale, closing a deal, is simply the natural conclusion to a well-qualified conversation. You've done all the hard yards, all the hard meters up front. You've got the right target audience that you're sending out your messages to. You've got the right value proposition, and everything else just kind of lines up, and you understand everything that client wants to achieve through transacting, through dealing with you, how they want you to work with them to make their business better. And remember, we're either helping them to sell more stuff or reduce their costs, or preferably a bit of both, a lot of both. But those are the only two benefits that you deliver. Andrew works in the, if you don't mind me saying so, Andrew, you work in the apps business with the Curve. And for the most part, you're going to be helping your customers sell more stuff. I think I've got that right. Let me know if I've got that wrong. All right, so closing. First principles. So buying signals should be present, as Andrew just said back then. Excuse me. Buying signals, we should be looking for positive affirmation, nodding of heads, stuff like that, interested questions, negotiating or closing sort of phrases. We've got, sorry if you've just come onto the call, you're very welcome. You may cross back and forth between negotiating and closing, so make sure you're aware of the dynamic that's kind of going on. And into closing, I believe, takes place throughout the process, even in terms of guiding to next steps. Great for me, it's not really a closing question, but it's certainly a qualification question, particularly in larger deals, is who else is needed to sign this off? Don't just ask who makes the decision, because you'll almost certainly get boxed into a corner with the person you're actually asking, oh, it's me. And as you'll find out, doing deals, particularly in companies with let's say 10 or more. I've done deals with thousands. The answer is almost certainly more than one person required in a deal. Okay, so now you may not always be able to meet the decision maker, and sometimes when you're working with a Fortune 500 or a FTSE 100 company, you can't get to meet the CFO for whatever reason. There are ways to do that, not for this call, but you may not get to meet the decision maker itself. So you are going to have to take steps, and you can ask for the recommendation. Let's say, are you going to recommend me to your CFO who signs this deal off? And then whatever the response is, you can deal with that then. This is a complex subject, but these are the sorts of signs that we're looking at. And sometimes you don't get to a handshake. It's next steps, as we talked about with qualification with contracts, with lawyers and stuff like that. Here's a tip as well. If you're going to start off with paperwork, always try to start off with your paperwork, terms that you've negotiated previously with other clients, stuff that you know will go through your legal system. If you're dealing with a massive company, I don't know, a big bank or a big construction firm, something like that, they will almost certainly try to impose their terms and conditions, their contracts on you. And so be prepared for lots and lots of red lines from your own legal team, or if you're outsourcing your legal work, who are representing your best interests, by the way, there'd be lots of stuff that they won't agree to. So you need to also to make sure that you are able to get to yes. Are there any fundamentals in their paperwork, in your paperwork, that you're never ever going to agree? And an example that comes to mind is a commercial clause called using best endeavors. And I'm talking here about United Kingdom law, commercial law here. Same is true in the United States and Germany as well, by the way. And that's a term called best endeavors. And best endeavors means, in legal speak, that you have to keep trying to solve that customer's problem until you become insolvent. Let me just say that again. You have to keep solving that attempting to remedy that customer's problem until your company becomes insolvent, which means you're about to go bankrupt or Chapter 11. Okay, so one should always use all reasonable endeavors. Let's move on. Okay, so now we get to closing, keeping an eye on the time here. There are only 5 main types of close. And the important thing is here, just to get the essence from these phrases, use your own words that you're comfortable with. It has to feel authentic to you, and then it will come across as more authentic, more powerful to your customer or your prospect. So here we go. We can use a test close. And a test close it's not a real close, it's just we're just going to dip our toe in the water, if you like. And it could be something like, how does that sound? Does that make sense? Something like that. So you're not really saying, can you sign on the, can you give me a pen, can you sign on the dotted line right here, right now? You're not going for the heavy salesperson type close. You're just asking quite a gentle, how's that sound? And then you're looking for, as Andrew said, it's the body language, the nodding heads, yes, the affirmative sort of phrases, if you like. That sounds perfect. Excellent, let's do it. And then you know the ground is prepared that you can move forward. So that's a test close. It could be a summary close. Perhaps we're going into the Apple store, lucky us. And okay, so it's the iPhone 12 Pro Max, it's 13 now. Pro Max in hot pink. It's got the 5.8 screen, 512 gig of memory. Is that okay? That's the assumptive or the summary close. You're summarizing all the, I'm going to say features. We should try and steer away from features for obvious reasons, but we're summarizing all of the component details, the major details of the phone or the TV or whatever it is that we're kind of buying. Or it could be, if you're selling apps, It's going to be this many days, depending on whether you're selling at a fixed price or time and materials, and all sorts of other, but you're summarizing the main components of your deal. If you're an accountant and you can't see, feel, or touch that service, it may be it's an hour a month of my time, and this is the hourly rate. How does that sound? It may be something like that. Okay, right. Could be the alternative. Sounds like a plan. Yes, indeed. That one, Natalia, you get for free. Okay, so then we're going to talk about an alternative close. And Andrew, just in case you're thinking, Keith, come on, 34 years. This is too basic. It's about, I hope you'll agree with this, Andrew, it is about mastering the basics. And you're on mute, by the way.
So yeah, I get that, and I was thinking that it was reminding me of some of the training I did a few years ago. And to me, a close is when you get that signed paperwork back. So yeah, they might agree, or you might have agreed with your counterpart that you're going to do something, but until you get that paperwork back in, personally, I don't believe the deal is closed until you actually have that paperwork. And all the way through that stage, you're sort of testing the waters of how valid their willingness to buy from you is.
That is really, really good point, actually, because sometimes the closing can be not just in the moment. There's actually a process to go through to get that a wet copy of the paperwork, as you rightly pointed out, Andrew. And sometimes, even though you've got a yes from the person sat opposite you, and then that's not necessarily a yes. I remember being at Morgan Stanley, and no one's on here from that firm, but a few years back, and we were closing, which did close eventually, a pretty big data center for them off-site. And the guy who's quite a senior property guy sat opposite us. Welcome Harrison and Furman. Quite a big guy from investment bank sat opposite us, who we had asked for a letter of intent, I can't remember the exact words. Anyway, we'd asked for a letter of intent, which is, depending on who you're working with, the guy at Morgan Stanley said, well, actually, it's as hard to get a contract out of us as it is a letter of intent. And so if you're going to go through an effort, get the one that really works for you. He actually said, and sometimes when you go with someone else to a meeting, it can be really hard to control someone else, particularly if they're shall I say, a technical or operations director. Sometimes they just don't think like salespeople think, and they'll open their mouths beforehand. Sorry to anyone else this might offend, but I remember this guy I worked with, really clever guy, but sometimes didn't engage brain before he opened his mouth. The guy at Morgan Stanley actually said, a letter of intent from us is as good as a check. And just before I could say, Trevor, the guy I was working with, said, we'll take the check. And you can't control some people like that. And you can imagine that took a little bit of discomfort to just kind of calm everyone down, because it's quite anyway, this is not about me. Let's move on. So the alternative close is, do you want this in pink or green, that color or that color? Not do you want it or not, it's do you want it in this color or that color? Do you want it delivered this afternoon for that price, or tomorrow morning for that price? And now that you know about this kind of stuff, you might even recognize that you've been either exposed to it in some way before, or you might recognize it when you go down the shops this afternoon, or whatever it happens to be. The alternative close, now that it's in your consciousness, maybe you can start using that the next time you're on the phone to your prospect that you want to get a meeting with, or a Zoom call or something like that. It's like, how are you fixed Friday morning 10 a.m. or next Tuesday afternoon at 3 p.m. You're not asking do they want to meet or not. You're asking and assuming you want to meet them, you know enough about them that you want to meet them. You're giving them the choice is that day or that day, not yes or no. Really important. Okay, right, next. The assumptive close. very similar to the summary close, if you like. So the assumptive close feels like a bit of a bulldozer, frankly. So I've been into took out a gym membership a few months ago, and it was really interesting to witness it being used in a real environment. And this person, I won't mention the gym name, but you'd recognise the name if you heard it. They just took out their order pad, and they said, confirm the details, press hard, fifth copy is yours. No, I didn't do that because I recognised what was going on, and I wasn't comfortable. I needed more information. I wanted to tour the facilities. How about that for a concept? They just took out they'd obviously just been on a training course, not one of mine, because I wouldn't recommend that. But they went for the bulldozer close, and or the assumptive close in polite parlance, because we're in polite company here. That wasn't appropriate. Okay, right. So, and a conditional close. If I can give you a bit of discount, Mr. Customer, can we do it right now? Conditional. If I concede a bit, I want some commitment from you as well. Now, that's a really important point. You are training your buyer. You're training the buyer to behave in the way you want them to behave. Now, we've got some people that do a number of skills on this call. A number of people, business owners, where sales is one of the many things, but also we've got some out and out sales people as well, which is fantastic. So keep me sharp, everyone. Natalia, yeah, even after the paper's signed, can still be done. But if you've got the right kind of contract, and Natalia, at least you're in cost recovery mode. Remember, do everything as though you're going to court. Okay, right. So now, I'm going to play you a sketch in 1 second. Some of you may have seen this. Most of you won't. I'm going to play you a 1 minute scene just now. Let me just check that the sound is going to be turned up. Share, going to do that. I just want you to understand a little bit about this. I hope you're going to see a number of skills at play here. It'd be interesting when we finish. It's only about a minute long, just over a minute. So I want you to listen really carefully. When I first beg your pardon, when I first press play, if you could give us a thumbs up if you can actually hear the sound, that would be really helpful, if you don't mind. Here we go.
Your money, Mr. Kimber. Rescued from the Lee brothers and returned to you with a request for a fair hearing. Your own protection is failing, Mr. Kimber. Your boys are taking cuts. I want to suggest that from now on, you contract out your racetrack security to the Peaky Blinders. We'd be saving you a lot of money, Mr. Kimber. A lot of money. In return, you give us 5% of the take and 3 legal betting pitches at every race meeting north of the River Severn, rising to 6 after 1 year if we are all satisfied with the service. What do you say, Mr. Kimber?
I say you talk business to my accountant. I want to dance.
Okay, right. So hopefully you kind of recognise that. That's Birmingham's finest, West Midlands' finest, the Peaky Blinders. Now, the reason I feel comfortable in playing all of that is, first of all, that series has been to about 40 countries throughout the world. It's one of the best export products the United Kingdom has. So I hope you kind of recognise that. That is a scene from, I think it's the first series 1. Later on in that particular series, and I don't know if Stephen Knight, the creator of that series, if he's ever been in sales or not, but that is as brilliant a 60-second pitch as you could ever get. And I've got a video that I've done offline. Not going to go through that. Hi, Natalia. Excuse me. And if you want a link to that video, drop me a DM or in the chat here, and I'll send you a link separately to that. So the sales skills that came out of that 60-second pitch are many and manifest. Okay, so I'm just going to let you know a few things. First of all, did a really important thing. He took the gift. He took a gift to that meeting. I don't mean a bottle of wine or a box of chocolates or anything like that. He took the gift of insight. Insight. We're talking about the fourth industrial. Yes, okay, fair. Maybe I'll do that. The gift of insight. He knew something about that customer's business that the customer didn't know. Now you may be a stranger to that account and you may not have that knowledge, but you may know something about their market that they're operating in that they don't know. You may have a particular POV, a point of view on their business, and that makes you valuable. So that's a huge compliment, and that makes you much better than just 90% of your competition, who frankly are lazy and they will not have the experience or the insight that you or my clients frankly are able to bring to the business. So taking a gift like that makes you powerful and relevant. The conditional exchange, I'm not expecting you to remember this, but in the first few seconds, he lays out the money on the table in exchange for your time. I'm going to give you all this. I'm going to give you something about your business that one of your suppliers is skimming, they're stealing money from you, and I'm letting you know that, but in exchange for a fair hearing. So he's got a proposition for him. The test or soft close. Do you remember I said you're not asking for the business or I beg your pardon, are you going to sign it or not? We're not there. It's a test or a soft close. What do you say, Mr. Kimber? What do you think, Mr. Kimber? It's a soft close. It's if you're at all uncomfortable, and there is a bit of tension when you're asking for business. I absolutely get that. When you're asking for money, I remember asking my mum when I was about 4 years old, can we have an ice cream? And that is the thing that holds me back every single time. I'm transported back to that moment. That's the hurdle that I have to get over when I'm asking that. You don't have to answer that, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking to get over. We all have it. We all have our ice cream moment. We have to get over ourselves. So the test or soft close is just a gentler way of getting there. And then incredible use of silence. What do you say, Mr. Kimber? It doesn't follow it up. There's the use of silence there, which for the anyone that doesn't know what's going on is absolutely terrifying. They're kind of looking around, what's going on here? What's happening? I don't know. I'm out of control. My goodness me, the world's going to end. But it's not. It's silence. It's incredibly powerful. And if you know what's going on and you know what's happening and you're controlling that meeting, you can use that to your best advantage. So use of silence. And then Andrew mentioned earlier on around the buying signals, the listening. Now, did he get a yes or a no? No, he didn't. He said, I say talk numbers with my accountant and go for a dance. Excuse me. And what that means is what we in the 21st century, we would call that due diligence. So sometimes on complex deals, it's not always, really easy to come to a yes or no decision. There's just more with eye contact. Yes, absolutely. Wackas, good observation. So in due diligence, sometimes you're going to have to get people like Natalia around the table who can interpret numbers. They're accountants, they know how that works. You're going to have to get the IT people around the table. All sorts of due diligence will have to take place. And if it all looks up okay, then we're probably going to work on that deal. And then I don't know if you noticed at the very last of the scene, the accountant, the numbers person, gives a little wry smile. Again, in terms of body language, that is the wry smile of resignation. That means he's got to make that deal work. Okay, and that's a great bit of body language. Because my guess is the gangster in that case, whose name is Billy Kimber, has a particular way of dealing with people who steal money from his business, which we won't go into here because we're far too polite. But anyway, that was Tommy. So the principles are, some people in digital marketing, I don't know if there's anyone from digital marketing, they talk about micro commitments. I talk about building an agreement staircase. So here we are, here's a staircase. Can't remember where it is. It might actually be Waterloo Station. So I recognize those steps. But we're going to walk up those steps to the top, to the bright sunlight where profit is, and that's where we're trying to get to. We're going to walk up those stairs together, and we're going to be asking, do you like that screen? Yes, I love that 4K screen. It's brilliant. We're going to walk up there. Would you like it in red or black? The alternative clothes. Well, I'd like it in black. I really love black. Okay, next step. Is that going to fit okay in your living room? In my case, we've got a really big living room wall, which I managed to persuade Mrs. Roselle, therefore, merited an enormous television, which was one of the hardest sales I think I've ever made. But anyway, will that fit in the living room? Yes. Okay, let's go up another step. And delivery next Friday, is that okay? That's an assumptive close. Yes, but Friday works. Cash or card? An alternative close. Now, these are very, very basic questions, but I'm just trying to, this is much easier to understand than something I hope that is more complex. Your world may be more complex than that. But do you see how we're taking that, we're leading that customer to the answer? That's basically what we're doing, cash or card. Okay, so in the last 4 minutes that are left. So rule number one, whether it's a gym membership, i.e. high volume, low cost, or it's a multi-billion-dollar outsourced deal, or anywhere in between, you've got to ask for the order. It's unlikely anyone's ever going to say, fantastic, Harrison, here you go, knock yourself out. I mean, well, if they do, you know, hats off, Harrison. Well, my world doesn't work like that. Okay, but if they do, that's fantastic. So ask for the order, really important. But there are ways of asking the order where you're comfortable asking for it, and therefore your opposite number, if you like, are more comfortable receiving that message. If all the conditions are there, the natural conclusion should be a close. Okay, right. So why don't we ask for the order? I'm going back. So I hope whatever number you answered, or even if you didn't want to give an answer at the beginning of the call, I hope you've been raised a couple of notches at least. Let's say a 20% increase in confidence in where you are. Unless you're Andrew, who probably is already there. Just but I really appreciate the engagement anyway, Andrew. Why don't we ask for the order? We've got some sort of hang up. After a long number of years, I realized what my hang up was. So I had to unlearn that mindset. I still get a little bit now, but I know what it is. And those angels or demons that are on your shoulders, I had to let the right one kind of win. And I don't ask with no clothes on, so to speak. I'm looking for buying signals all the time, for positive affirmations of some kind. They're not always in words. Sometimes it's in gestures or gesture clusters that just take me a little bit closer to the sale. They'll ask what I call a question of interest. Do you have it in blue? So we could have said, do you like it in black or red? Well, if you got it in blue, that might be an objection, a question that comes back. Do you have one I can take away right now? Now, I'm in Yorkshire, and that means well, I am tight with cash. I cannot stand paying full price for anything. So I'm almost certainly going to be prepared to do a deal on something that's in the window that's what I want, if I can get it cheaper, because I don't need a box or anything like that. So that's me, and I'm really comfortable in doing that. Can you start on Monday? That might be for anyone that's worked in Commonwealth Games, and I've coached a few people in that process. One of the big things they've got is turnover of people, massive turnover of people. So one of the questions they had to ask at the very beginning of the phone call, rather than the very end, when they've qualified the sale, yes, this person's perfect, but all of a sudden, 40 minutes later after the interview on the phone, you find out they can't start Monday. Get the important questions at the beginning of the script, not the end of the script. That's really important. These are all examples of buying signals. Not going to do that one today. So quick question for you, if I may. We talked about reference just briefly, objections, and I want to do a session on objection handling in 2, 3, 4 weeks time. So you may not be able to answer this right now, but I would be really interested on an anonymous basis, if you prefer. What's the most common objection that you hear in your business? And I'm expecting some answers like you're too expensive, you're not experienced, something like that. But if you and so it needs more time. The think about it thing. Okay, brilliant. Right, we're going to cover that now, but thank you for that. I'm going to put some thought into that. One Tuesday in the next 2, 3 weeks. Delivery time frames, yes, good one. Then I'll do something on that and I'll keep you posted on that. We will need to be connected, by the way, Harrison, we are, but if there's any price points, yes, absolutely. Okay, so if you want the link to that, drop me, some of you have already, no people, that's an interesting one. So if you want the link to that, drop me a line or DM me or something like that, and we'll do that. So takeaways for closing. Natural conclusion to a well-qualified conversation, ask for the order, test close. What do you say, Mr. Kimber? How does that feel? How does that sound? Conditionality. If I do this, will you do that? Silence, we've already been there. Oh, by the way, a brilliant, I don't know if anyone's seen a movie called A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Tom Hanks. It's less than 3 years old, I think. Fleming, okay, got that. If anyone's seen that movie, there is, very unusually for a movie, there's a whole 60 odd seconds of silence in that movie when they're in the cafe, and Tom Hanks is sat across from the other person. Really hard to carry that on in a Hollywood movie, but a great example if ever you get to see that. And be your authentic self. So, and we have a deal. It's a great closing line as you're shaking hands when you're accepting a price, or they're accepting your price. We have a deal. That's a nice way to wrap up that conversation. Next week, I'm going to talk about maximizing yield. If you're an accountant or if you're in sales, wallet share. We want share of wallet. So your customer might spend 100K with you on apps, but they might spend 500K in total over what you do. So I'm going to be talking about ways that you can get more of their share of wallet, more of their share of spend, grow your accounts. So for existing customers, excuse me, this is me next Tuesday, 1:15 p.m. UK, which Fairman for you, I think is about 7:15 in the morning, something like that. Something like that. Here we go. Okay, right. So brilliant. In the meantime, sorry, I'm 1 minute over. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. There's a YouTube channel. My children think that's hilarious that Daddy's got a YouTube channel, but you know, that's the world we live in. I love it. You can drop me a line at salesmarvel.co.uk, keep that, or you can visit the website and subscribe. I'd love for you to do that. Unless there's any other questions, I'm going to wish you a fantastic rest of the day, and I very much look forward to seeing you this time next week. Thanks very much, everyone. Take care. This is the embarrassing bit where I'm looking for the switch. There we go. Right, share and go. Thanks, everyone. Take